an example of Afghanistan, because I'm from Afghanistan. Wikileaks only released information to just show the relation between Hamid Karzai and his former vice president, but showed no proof that his brother Wali Karzai, he's being corrupted and he's been stealing the money as well. Don't you think that showing half of the truth actually is harming more people than not knowing the truth at all?
I think it's a very good question. I think we need the whole truth, and that we need to examine that. One of the problems with WikiLeaks is if, of course, it's only a partial account. But the cables from Afghanistan are nevertheless very devastating, because they show the Karzai government brazenly refusing to address corruption at the request of the US government.
What are we not seeing? What is Julian Assange not allowing us to see?
No, I agree.
This is the fundamental problem. It's not a problem, it's the fundamental
So you say
problem.
there should be full transparency. We should see all the cables.
No, I'm saying that we should take, in the case of the democratic states of the United States, those democratic and accountable institutions that we already have in place, those checks and balances, and use them.
It doesn't work. It didn't work in the case of Iraq. I've testified to Congress and I've testified to Parliament, and their questions are not good enough. They don't hold government to account.
That's just pure rubbish.
Okay,
the fact is, that's your opinion.
It's not my opinion, it's my experience.
I was involved in this process, and I know that the mistakes were made because people didn't make the right decisions, not because they were trying to lie to people. You can be wrong. The fact is that weapons of mass destruction was simply a mistake by the intelligence community, and that they were only repeating what the intelligence community said. That's a fact.
So you may wag your finger at me, but I worked on the subject for 4.5 years. I read the intelligence every single day, and the case for war was exaggerated.
But that's not the point. That's not the point.
What is the point then?
The point
that truth was not revealed. It was not found out by parliaments before the war.
But whose fault was that? It was the intelligence community in the United States' fault.
And where is the accountability for them?
Well, they did not do a good job, and they should be blamed for that. The fact is
it's a little late for that, isn't it?
Well, it's kind of late for you to say all of this stuff. I was there, and I remember you speaking up.
I resigned. I spoke up about
it. I resigned too, fella. So well, this is not something that you can be, the soul of the world. The fact is that there were mistakes made in Iraq. There were things that were done that I think were horrible, torture, much of the other things that went on. But to argue that the United States government can't be trusted and has lied to its American people. I
argued about my own government.
Well,
listen carefully.
I have more respect for the British government apparently than you do. The fact is that this is one of those cases where every government in the world has to honor privacy. If they don't, people won't talk to them.
Privacy over truth? I don't think so.
No. It's not a matter of truth. If someone tells you something to pass on to the President of the United States and says, please don't tell anybody.
That was not the case in WMD.
What are you going to do?
It's not that simple in WMD. There was vast amounts of intelligence data which said very clearly over and over the same thing, that there was no threat from Iraq.
That's not true.
That intelligence was then massaged to claim a threat. I read that intelligence, so I was part of the assessments. I went to UK-US meetings on Iraq every quarter for 4.5 years, and we began every one of those meetings by saying the same thing. Containment is working, Iraq is not a threat.
But if you're right, this doesn't mean that WikiLeaks is going to make the world better. We have a democratic system in place, and as Winston Churchill, your Winston Churchill said, it's a horrible system, it's the best system we got. The choice that we're being offered here tonight is between choosing a form of anarchy or at least trying to work within the system that's worked pretty well so far and is working in the UK.
Okay, we could argue very passionately here at the table for a long time, but I think we want to bring the audience in. Gentleman in the second row there, you've got a question.
Good afternoon. We the people are the citizens, are the ones who choose our leaders in our countries during voting. If we don't know the truth behind our leaders and their plans in the future, then what's the point?
Democracy is a mess. It's a messy house. It's a house with leaky roofs and all sorts of problems and floors that are falling down. And
it doesn't have to be full of lies, though, does it?
Well, some houses are. But what we're offered here is a choice. Julian Assange and Private Manning and others, they want to blow this house up. They genuinely want to bring down the diplomatic system. And what we're proposing on this side of the table is that it's a bad system, but we can make it better. We can rebuild that house. We can use democracy to challenge, like is happening in London right now, the mistakes.
Rather than destroy it. He says himself that that's his purpose. He's not trying to have more openness and transparency. He's hoping that we tighten up. He hopes that people can't communicate between governments. That's exactly what he wrote. That's what his objectives are. And if you agree with those, fine. But that's a different issue.
You're quoting very selectively from what he said, which is why I quoted his very careful words that transparent government tends to produce just government, and I'm sure you would agree with that. But the point is that we have a difficulty facing US diplomats at the moment. We do not have anything like the kind of anarchy or vandalism of the diplomatic system that you are alleging. Why? Because it would be in the interests of all those informants and all those foreign governments to continue to deal with the United States.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Gentleman in the second row, please.
I'm Mahmoud, and I was just going to ask for Mr. Carl and Scott. You were saying that WikiLeaks is a terrorist act. It's not terrorism. Terrorism is for killing innocent people, and it's not a terrorist act to give information out. Information that shouldn't be hidden from the public.
Go for it.
I understand completely people's concern about not being told the truth by their governments. That's something that all of us object to, and that we should hold our governments to a very high standard. And that's why we elect officials. That's why we set up elaborate procedures to oversee what the executive branch and what the president does. Is it fail-safe? No. But the intention is to make sure that the information that the people of the United States need to know to make good decisions, they know. If there are things that they would undermine their national security, we sometimes say it's better that we keep it secret. The American people, by the way, agree with that. They know that there are some things that could hurt us.
If you're trying to keep it secret, you know, like people outside in the US and Canada and Australia, they don't really know what's happening in Palestine. They don't know how, you know, they only know one side of the story. They don't know the next. They don't know, you know, the killing of innocent people, you know. They only know one side of the story. You know, this is what WikiLeaks is trying to do. They're just trying to give the other side of the story, which the governments hide.
Well, I think that the people in the United States hear that story loud and clear from not only its government officials, but from its press and media. The fact is, they may not tell it exactly like you want it to. They may not be as sharp or as accurate as you hope they would be. But the fact is that I'll put the United States, its openness, its transparency, up against any country in the world.
Scott Gilmour, you wanted to add something.
Well, I said WikiLeaks is a form of terrorism, and it sounds absurd, doesn't it? It sounds over the top. But think about it. This is a group of people who are trying to change the way that governments act and behave, and they're doing it through a set of illegal actions. They're trying to scare people into changing their behavior. And innocent people are going to be hurt and die by this. Private Manning stole...
He is not a member of WikiLeaks. This is a fundamentally important distinction.
Listen,
I support the right of WikiLeaks as a journalistic organization to support reproduce materials.
Can we just let him speak? You've had a lot of time, please.
To reproduce material they are given. There is no distinction in that respect between the New York Times, Der Spiegel, The Guardian, and WikiLeaks.
And guns don't kill people, people
I
kill
do
people.
not condone the stealing of government information by the perpetrator. But as with the Pentagon Papers and other issues, there can be a higher purpose served if, indeed, other procedures haven't succeeded in righting injustices.
I think there's something very important to say to Scott Gilmour and other people who talk about Bradley Manning, assuming that he's the perpetrator of this. We only know one side of the story about his involvement, and in a democracy and a rule of law system, a man is entitled to the presumption of innocence before he's tried, and I think it's very important that we respect that in this case.
You're absolutely right, Karn. Absolutely right.
I'll take a question from the gentleman in red on the right, please.
My name is Farhan Al-Swadi. I'm from Qatar, and I would like to ask just in general, is it really that wrong to know the truth or what is happening in the world today?
Diplomacy is not Facebook. Diplomacy requires a certain amount of confidentiality.
I mean, but excuse me, so what? I mean, if it's wrong, what, is it wrong to tell the truth? Why, we have to keep things a secret now?
Sometimes we do, and we do it all in our private lives. Diplomacy involves being frank and fearless. And we all recognize that humans, or leaders are humans, and they're going to be upset by that frank and fearless advice if we say it in public. You know, the governments, for example, take China, are going to have a much better chance of getting China to treat its citizens in Tibet better if they engage them privately behind closed doors. If those cables were thrown, and perhaps they already have been, to the wind, then China is simply going to repress and work harder and lose face.
I think there's an assumption here which needs to be tested or at least questioned, which is the assumption that governments need privacy in order to conduct their business. That trust needs to be earned by government. It should not be automatic. And the fact is, over recent years, with the abuses that we've seen, that trust has been lost. And governments need to restore that trust. But it is not something that is automatically given by us, the people. We give governments the right to do what they do in our name. It's not automatic.
Okay, lady in the third row there.
Hi, my name is Naza Shadeen. I'm from Pakistan.